So you just triggered something. I mean, obviously, as human beings, we all have limitations. Those are the things that we're continually examining. For you personally, what do you do to determine the ones that are most standing in your way? So if I'm asking myself a question, what is preventing me from moving from number 3 to number 1? It's probably a whole bunch of things. Or is there an approach for you to think about, hey, let me tackle this thing first?
First of all, that's a question that people don't really ask, what is preventing me? They usually ask the opposite of, how do I?
You've taught me well.
Okay. So what is preventing the person is a lack of sufficient examination into what is preventing him. That's what is preventing him.
So can you give me an example?
Well, for instance, there's fear in becoming world number 1, for instance. That could be one of the barriers.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's in looking for the method, one becomes blind to the way. And one becomes blind to the way because in looking for the method, he becomes blind to the things that are standing in his way. So what prevents someone from going from here to there isn't that he doesn't know how. It is that he is being blocked from getting there. So it is about removing the blockages, not creating a technique.
Part of moving that blockages is that learning how to or becoming attuned to some of the things that we're attached to?
No, learning the blockages is seeing the blockages.
So fear
and
as
seeing
an example,
the
is that what you're talking about?
Seeing the block, whatever the block happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing the blockages, one has to be looking for the blockages.
And that's part of the whole questioning process.
Yeah, that's the direction in which the truth is found. It's not found in the direction of how. It's found in the direction of why am I not? It's found in that direction. It's not found in the direction of how do I.
When you talk about legend and/or legends, I know it's about sincerity. I know it's about purity and devotion. But in your eyes, what makes one?
The desire to become one.
And just that constant quest to become one.
Well, it doesn't have to be constant. It's got to be deep. Where one goes is a function of how deeply he longs to get there and how serious he is to getting there. Everything else is secondary.
Mm-hmm. And I know you don't give him any answers, right? But when that conversation continues and you can see that they're really dead serious about that pursuit of legendary, do you just what do you do to help them start to formulate that thinking in order to try to get closer to that?
There's no doing. It's whatever happens spontaneously. Whatever one is ready to hear, he will hear when he's ready to hear it, and I will speak it when I feel like he's ready to hear it. I don't dump the kitchen sink because it's useless to do so. A person has to be ready to hear a certain level of truth. Otherwise, it'll short circuit your brain. Mm-hmm. Literally, it does. People, truth can be harmful to your health. I mean,
especially yours.
No, I mean that because I don't sugarcoat things. I state truths raw, and I mean that most literally. I mean, there can be an adverse effect to knowing a truth that you are not ready to hear on a biological level. I mean, it literally, people have very significant reactions to these things, partly because something inside of them recognizes that it's true, but their mind is not ready to hear that, and therefore there takes place and sort of an internal combustion, and an internal war takes place.
Yeah, well, you've shared a bunch with me personally, and we've acknowledged it here on this podcast. Kapil, does it surprise you that the overwhelming majority of people don't know what they genuinely want?
No, why would they?
What causes that?
Well, I mean, if you work, let's say that you work. So let's say that you're awake from 7 a.m. to, let's say, 9 p.m., right? So you're awake for 14 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So the remainder of the 10 hours you're sleeping, right? So for those 14 hours, let's say you're locked in your cubicle, or you're locked in an office, or you're locked wherever, okay? And you're working. How can you know anything besides your work? Why would you? If you are preoccupied in a certain mode, in a certain way of looking at the world, in a certain pattern of thinking, in a certain pattern of belief, why would you be expected to know something way over here?
Because I have one life to live. And if the majority of my time I'm at work doing something that I hate or that I'm not engaged in, at some point I probably should examine that.
Well, there's no should. I'm telling you what happens. I mean,
it's the reality for sure.
You said so. It's there's no judgment here. There's no you should turn around and look the other way. I'm not saying that. I'm simply answering your question. Why is it that most people don't know what they want? And my response is, why should they? If you are preoccupied by X and Y, and you are not preoccupied by looking into what exactly it is that you want, why would you know what you want? There's no should there. There's no should there. I'm just making a plain black and white statement of fact.
So how do you define work?
Well, you're missing the whole point. By work, I am saying preoccupation. If your total attention is towards everything except looking into what it is that you want out of life, why would you know what you want out of life?